Okay, welcome to the Prophetic Outlook. And as you can see, we have a returning special guest. We have the great John Haller here. You will know him from his prophetic updates, you will know him from his roundtables and the conference circuit, and you'll also know that he is an experienced lawyer as well as an in depth studier and teacher of prophecy, eschatology, and dispensationalism. So we've got him on here, and as we were messaging and talking beforehand, there's quite a bit to talk about. So, guys, as you're coming on, make sure you're saying hi. Make sure you're saying where you're coming in from. I can see Emmaus Road Productions. Kathy's here. Kelly's here. Coco Bear, Caterlin, Kylie, Leslie, Arrow Whisperer, Sir Pierce the Veil, Joanne, Yvonne. Guys, keep saying hello and where you're coming in from. And yeah, the moderators are in control from this point onward. So we're just going to chat. So welcome back, John.
Fine. Hey, text me. Have somebody text me or messaging me a link to your live feed, and I'll put it up on my Facebook feed while we're talking about. I appreciate the introduction that the great John Haller instead of the great big John Haller. That was very kind of you. I often joke I'm a
So
2x guy in a 1x world. So I look forward to the vast expanses of heaven where everything will fit finally.
I'm going to send you this now. I'm sure that the moderators can do it too, but just so I know it's done,
Did you send it to my
uh,
messenger?
yeah, I'll do it now.
Okay.
Um, that should be it coming through now.
Okay.
So as we were talking off air, and we were talking about all the things that are going on in the world right now, it seems there's loads that we could talk about. We could talk about what's happening in the Middle East. We could talk about Ukraine and Russia. We could talk about the war games that are going on all the way across Europe right now. But I want to center in right now on what we were talking off air about, which was just before we started. I was blocking someone because of the vitriol and the hate in regards to Charlie Kirk, and they were putting that on my own social media page, and I just thought I've had enough. And you've experienced similar things recently.
Yeah, I sort of go through a process with people. Um, I would just say this, folks. I started doing this so that people in my church could keep up,
Hmm.
and it grew through social media. Okay, I didn't follow a marketing plan or anything like that. So I'll take that as of the Lord and the day and age that we live in. But I know Gary, Pastor Gary, and Tom Hughes, and those of us who do this that have a social media presence, we get inundated with stuff, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's a and I'll get sent if I get sent less than 200 videos in a week from people, then I consider that a good week.
Yeah.
And so I've sort of started a new rule that if you're going to send me a video, you need to summarize it and why this is important and what you think the key points are, and maybe timestamp them so I don't, because I would only listen to videos, and I
Yeah.
read hundreds and hundreds of pages of things every week related to current events of the world. And I can explain that in a moment. But you and I both, we were just talking about it. It is a real drag at
Hmm.
times to be sent what I can only describe as garbage. So somebody sent me a video last night. It was from a channel. I don't even know if I want to name the channel. And I said the initial thing is they're Jew haters, they're
Hmm.
pro-Palestinian, and they're Russian shills. And then immediately Colonel Douglas McGregor, one of the worst, pops up. The Douglas McGregor who's been saying for 3.5 years that you go back to the early days, this is over, the Ukraine thing is over in
Yeah.
15 days.
Yeah.
And now we're 3.5 years, and every video is victory is imminent.
Hmm.
And I don't agree with this. And I started listening to some other alternative viewpoints, but it's just, and I told the person this, and immediately they unfriended me and blocked me, for which, in hindsight, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
But the thing with Charlie Kirk has, I mentioned this Sunday, there's a lot of theories going on about the guy in the white hat. The guy in the white hat is Frank Turek, who is a very well known Christian apologist. And I told people on Sunday, if you're posting things on social media that Frank Turek was somehow involved in this, um, he, he was probably one of, if not Charlie's closest friend.
Yeah.
He was his best friend, Charlie, was
Hmm.
down 2 or 3 feet away from him. You can see the video of them loading Charlie into the SUV, and Frank is there and runs around to get in the other side. And he posted a video last night or this morning saying, I was in the van on the way to the hospital giving Charlie mouth to mouth, but he was already gone. I was
Yeah.
doing PR on him. And I just think that I think that everybody wants to figure this out. Okay. And there's a big push in social media world to be the first one to post
Hmm.
rather than being the first one who's right.
Yeah.
So I really sometimes I've been tempted, I get these things from people every now and then, you got to go live, you got to go live right now. And I'm like, I really want to sort this out a little bit so I can see. And so I think people need to do that. But when it involves slandering, libeling a good Christian man, I really get pretty angry about that. I will confess. And when Charlie got shot, I was playing golf a week ago today, and I was near the end of my round, and I was playing by myself, and my phone started to blow up. And I will confess, I was really, really, I was enraged,
Hmm.
and I got really angry when I stopped some guys in the other fairway to tell them and the response, and this is in a small a town where my wife grew up, or actually near where I was born, and my dad had his first pastorate. And they go, "Oh, Charlie Kirk, who's that? Is that anybody?" And so it kind of was a moment that in our circles, Charlie Kirk was a big deal, but other people they don't even know who he is.
Yeah.
And then you layer on top of that this incessant need to label everybody and everything in the world a Freemason, an Illuminati guy, or a uh, everything was the result of the Israeli Mossad
Yeah.
or the Israeli Shin Bet or whatever you want to call it. And that narrative has taken hold big time. And my admonition is, look, I was a trial lawyer. I investigated a lot of things, and in my career as a lawyer, and some major white collar criminal cases I was involved in on the defense side. These investigations take years,
Hmm.
and so everybody says like, so I use Steve Bannon as an example. I like some of the stuff he does, but on this one he's like, Cash Patel has to give us everything that he's doing and everything he's found day by day. You can't do that
Yeah.
because you'll destroy the evidentiary trail or people that you're going after.
Hmm.
It's like on the Epstein thing. This thing's been
Yeah.
going on for 25 years. So Cash Patel and Pam Bondi are going to come in and solve it in 10 months. Well, they haven't even been in office 10 months.
No.
But it's just everybody, you got to learn a little bit of patience, and you don't have to. I titled my thing on Sunday, Slow to Speak, which I did it for a reason.
Yeah.
And look, I will confess, I make mistakes. I made a mistake Sunday. I posted on my Facebook page. I made a mistake and I apologize. And I went back and edited it out of the video
Hmm.
because and I kind of let my emotions get the better of me. And I made a point. I had a point to make, and I let my emotions make a point that completely took away from the point that I wanted to make. So I still apologize for that, and I had reasons for that, but it's irrelevant now. So
Well, we all let we all at some point let our emotions go, but then I think we're living, and I was kind of we were saying this off air, that we're living in a time right now where reason and sort of sound reasoning seems to be thrown out the window. And I think if we go back 5, maybe 6 years, it started to be displaced with conspiracy theory. And we could liken the likes of the Tucker Carlsons and the people like that. There were people that, through certain of those conspiracy theories, we were aligned with. They said some things and we went, yes, you're on par with that. But what seems to, for me, there's like a sifting going on of people who are not taking the word, not taking the Bible as their rock, as the lamp to their feet and the light to their path, and rather they're looking for that quick conspiracy. When he died, the last thing that was on my head was, or was in my head, was some sort of conspiracy to orchestrate his death. It was just a horrible thing to watch, horrible thing to for the family, for those around him. And then you see people who we were talking about off air who are capitalizing on this for clicks, for likes, for viewers, subscribers, all of that. Now, I don't know about you. This it's not new as an approach to conspiracy, but this idea of let's blame the Jews for everything, let's blame Israel, that certainly Candace Owens seems to be propagating. Um,
and Tucker Carlson.
and Tucker Carlson.
It,
What are your
it,
thoughts on this? What are
well,
your
so
thoughts?
so the what happens is Candace has points that she wants to make. You just watch what she does. And this is something you learn as a young lawyer. When you're a young lawyer and you're given a file to work on, a case, and then you start looking at evidence, letters, correspondence, pictures, that type of thing
Mm,
about, let's say it's a business dispute. It is very, very easy because your goal is to represent your client the best way possible, but not lie or do anything that's going to be untruthful. But the problem that you run into as a young lawyer is that you initially think that everything you see proves your case.
yeah.
And so and we have names for guys like that in the law that do that. They're called young lawyers or losers at the case. And so it's very, but you see that a lot. I'm going to go back 25 years ago. 25 years last month. I spoke at a national church conference, and my topic was, interestingly enough, it kind of, I was prompted in me by someone who's associated with Frank Turek, an apologist, to talk on postmodernism and the effect that it's going to have on the church, where everybody is saying, my truth, my experience, my truth is truth, and you can't impinge on that in any way. And so
Mhm.
rationality gets thrown out of the window. And I spoke, and I had pastors come up to me after that. It was mostly pastors that were at the talk and say, "You, John, you don't understand. Postmodernism will be a very good thing for the church because people are asking questions." So I'm going to ask you, in the last 25 years, has postmodern thought been a good thing for the church?
No.
It's one of the deceptions of the end times.
Yeah.
And I'm very in it, and it's infused so much in the church. Then you layer onto it things like mysticism, which has come into the church, which only makes that sort of postmodern or even postmodern orientation worse. And I've stood against that, and it's
Hmm.
not been It cost me a lot of relationships, a lot of things, and it was very hard on me, even harder on my wife. But God opened some doors for us after that that have, proved fruitful. But the postmodern thing, and so what you see, I think, on social media is everybody's posting their truth like it's truth.
Yeah.
And if you challenge that, my goodness gracious, the responses that you get are just absolutely unbelievable. And you'll get blocked and unfriended, and that's okay. But it's sort of like, sort of I think we've sort of stopped taking comments too much on a lot of things we put up, just because we're a small church. We average about 55 people in attendance. We don't have a staff,
Mm-hmm.
and moderating all of those comments gets very, very difficult. And I'm constantly shocked at Christian people, what they say in these comments. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if you disagree with me, that's fine, but the vicious nature of the comments is indicative of a heart that's not right.
Yeah. Well, do you think that's the Matthew 24:12 element coming in? We're seeing so much
Sure.
lawlessness abound, but obviously, love needs to be. There's an aspect of love that is of the world, and then there's biblical love, which means that we've still got to speak truth. It's not compromise. You don't, like Jesus says, as many as he loves, he chastens and rebukes. So there's a call right now. If we're looking at the likes of the example of Charlie Kirk, and I guess the question I'm getting to in this, Charlie Kirk stood on campuses, and this was the positivity that we saw by what he did. He stood at campuses and he engaged with the culture by not compromising to the culture. He spoke, against the things, the ideologies, the philosophies of men. Off his death, there's been reports that loads of people have flocked to churches. Now, I think that's primarily going to be America. We didn't actually experience that here. Um, But I guess my question is, do you think off the back of this, because I think this is one of those moments like JFK, like Princess Diana, everybody remembers where they were. Do you think this is going to push towards an awakening, maybe doors open to the church, or do you think this is just going to highlight how fractured with ideologies the world is?
Well, certainly, whether it's by design or part of this end times deception that we talk about, there's no question that there are major fault lines.
Hmm.
And there are major fault lines. Um, so I'll speak more to the side that I fall on, which is what I would call the right wing conservative political side and theological side.
Hmm.
Within our side of the aisle of issues, this thing it's fracturing every day. And Israel seems to be at the core of it. I think it's part of it. I think you're right about Matthew chapter 24, and some of it is by design.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know that um, everything is by design. So in my career, I had an opportunity to meet some people that were fairly high up in the financial world,
Hmm.
and allegations made against them about some of their orientations I didn't see. Okay, I'm just telling you.
Hmm.
So maybe they deceived me, and that's entirely possible. Um, but yeah, people, and then the funny thing too is when you think, if you peel it back a little bit further, we went to high school with these people.
Okay.
They're not that much smarter than a lot of us.
Hmm.
They just kind of had different opportunities. So I'm not sure that I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it is a very, very fractured world. And we see day by day, we see that the international Charlie Vector thing that we went through starting about almost 6 years ago now,
Yeah.
that there's been a concerted effort to shut down people, to investigate people, to engage in lawfare, and that type of thing. But I think that, so if I could just jump forward on what I'm seeing from the Tucker Carlson's, or as I should say, Tucker Carlson and Propagandist Owens
Yeah.
over the past few days, I try to analyze it. Like everybody says, why are they doing it? And it's like, the most comforting thing would be that they're doing it for money.
Hmm.
But the other thing could be is that and I think this might apply to Candace, that you're becoming, if not already over the line, of being a complete psychological sociopath.
Mm.
And so she comes out with, she's very clever. She's a drama queen. This thing that, listen, pray for her and pray for her children who have to be around her all the time. I think that's a legitimate thing. Tucker's a little bit more clever in some respects. And I watch people that don't seem to get it with him and his rank anti Semitism. Now, I've known people that were inside at Fox, and they said this has been well known about Tucker for a very long time. You were never allowed to talk about it because he was the big star at Fox.
Hmm.
And so now that he's out from under those constraints, we can see the direction that he's going. And he changed. That change really started about a year and a half ago. The first thing that he did that was sort of indicative publicly of where he was going was the interview he did with Mother Isaac, a Lutheran pastor, I will use scare quotes, pastor from Bethlehem, who I've met. He's part of this Christ at the Checkpoint thing, and it is a liberation theology, Marxist ideology that's driving what is all there about this narrative about oppressed Palestinians and persecution by Israel of Christians. So, yeah, look, in Israel, there are people that really don't like Christians. But the Christian population of Israel, whether those people like it or not, has grown.
Yeah.
In the Palestinian areas, I don't really like the term, in Judea and Samaria, the Christian population has plummeted, just as it plummeted in Gaza because of Muslim persecution. And so you see this kind of strange alliance between leftists, Marxists, communists, environmentalists, and Islamic people.
Yeah.
And for right now, they're sort of united. Eventually, they'll turn on each other. But Trevor Loudon, who I've had the opportunity to interview and talk to, is pretty good on the red-green. He calls it the red communist green.
Yeah. Islamic.
Marxist Islamist alliance. And so when I'm watching what they've been done over the past few days with Charlie Kirk, about Charlie was afraid, he turned down $150 million from Israel. There's no proof of, Candace says, don't lie. I've got the text. It's just, she looks insane when she says this.
It's also, sorry, carry
No,
on.
go ahead.
I was just going to say it's also I saw that those who were apparently, because I think this meeting that all of this discussion happened was supposed to be in the Hamptons,
Right.
and those other people who were in the room do not back up the story that she's saying. They said that it was there to sort of navigate the future of Turning Point and how to go on the campuses and actually continue the stance that both Turning Point and Charlie Kirk held. But even at that, the thing that got me is, you know, like I said to you off air, this is a husband, this is a dad, and this, according to her, was someone that was like a brother to her. And a few days after his death, she's jumping on, causing controversy. Now, that to me would be like the person turning up, the weird family member at the funeral who turns up to create drama, and everybody's just wishing that they didn't actually turn up in the first place, you know?
You
Sorry,
know,
carry on.
if you made what's going on with Candace and Tucker
Hmm.
into a script and you went to a television or movie producer to turn it into a video, they would tell you we can't do that because it's so detached from reality that nobody would even buy
Yeah.
it as a comedy or a satire or anything. But it is reality, and
Hmm.
it's going on. So yeah, Bill Ackman, who was the billionaire who was supposedly pressuring Charlie
Hmm.
because he had gotten off the reservation on Israel, said that it didn't happen. There was no money offered to Charlie,
Yeah.
and the person Charlie's, I think his last name's begin with a K. I can't remember his name. He came out and said, "I was at the meeting that none of
Yeah.
this happened. What Candace is saying."
Hmm.
But that doesn't stop, because what happens is, what's the old saying? A lie will make it around the world one or two times before the truth gets out of bed to put its pants on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think this is what we're seeing here. And with the reach of social media, it's funny. I'm going to a conference in Texas, and some person who's watched me for a long time says, "Hey, I want to see you in Texas." And they're from a country in Central Asia, and they're going to be in Texas and it's like, how weird is this world?
Exactly. Yeah.
So here's this Christian brother who I'll meet Friday morning
Hmm.
at Cracker Barrel, by the way, for breakfast. But it's so weird that these things go all over the world. I mean, I hear from people in the UK and
Hmm.
Ireland and Scotland and stuff all the time. It's such a weird. Well, here we're across the ocean. We're
Yeah.
talking like you're sitting next to me.
Yeah.
We're talking over the internet, and it's not costing us a dime. I mean, I used to have to turn in my cell phone bills every month to get reimbursed because they charged by the minute. I mean, so you can sort of age yourself by saying,
Yeah.
is who remembers paying for long distance, let alone a rotary
Yeah.
phone? Um,
I used to, when I met she's my wife, but she lived in Scotland. I lived here, and we used to phone each other every night continually. And we were still at that point, living with our parents. And I was visiting her in Scotland when the phone bill came in. And I can just say I did not want to go home. I knew what was was in store
I
for
know.
me.
I mean, I would have literally, because I traveled all the time, was
Hmm.
on the phone all the time. I had thousands of dollars in cell phone bills each month.
Yeah.
And now it's sort of like I complain because my unlimited service, which includes a little bit for the phone, costs $79 for my line and my wife's line. And I'm going to go to Israel in a couple weeks, and I'll take it and I'll just start calling on my phone there, and I'll start getting text in Israel. And
Yeah.
it might cost $10 or $15, $12 a day, I think it is now. But it's such a weird world that we have this. But the problem is that sophisticated media types like Tucker Carlson and Propagandist Owens are able to milk that.
Yeah.
And it's what you see with Candace. So this is a place where I think the Holy Spirit really can guide us. So if you look at what Candace is doing, and it just makes you sick, it makes you nauseous,
Hmm.
it makes you upset. that's probably the Holy Spirit telling
Yeah.
you that this is a really, really bad thing.
Hmm.
By the same token, if it's not bothering you, then that ought to be a gut check on you that maybe you need to get yourself right with the Lord because
Amen.
it's so obviously wrong and bad.
Hmm.
And then I think of this. So there's a couple tracks here. I do see a lot of testimonies. I went through dozens this morning that somebody had compiled of people. I got saved because of Charlie. I got I'm going back to church. I'm reconnecting with my church.
Hmm.
I haven't been there for 7 years. This has really affected me. And so it's very similar to 9/11. I don't know how old you are, but
Yeah.
nine
I'm older than
eleven.
that.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I talk about, I forget about somebody um,
I was born in the 70s. That'll give you
okay.
an idea.
Well,
Right.
okay.
So.
Enough to be my kid, really, probably. Because I got married in the 70s. But, I was talking to somebody at the golf club where I work part time. They're like 25 years old. And I mentioned a popular TV show back in the 90s. And they're like, I never heard of it. It's like, what? It's on Nickelodeon for crying out loud, or it's on TV Land every night. And they so it's like this all of a sudden. This is funny too. So I used to go to these prophecy conferences as an attender sometimes, and I'd see the senior guys, okay, Chuck Missler, Dave Hunt,
Hmm.
and now I'm thinking like I go to a conference and I'm the senior guy. That's how weird the world is.
Yeah.
And when I think back to when Dave and Chuck were there, it's like they were like 8 years younger then than I am now. This is very bizarre to me when I sort of make these connections and I think, oh, better stuff. So anyway, but what happens with this propaganda thing? So my conclusion, because how long did it take for this narrative that it's Israel to take?
Oh.
It was happening. Charlie's being loaded in the van, and you're already seeing it.
Hmm.
This is an Iranian, Islamist, Russian propaganda thing that's being pushed on us everywhere. And every day you see more people buying into it because they don't have the discernment to resist it. It's too pat, it's too well formed. And so what they do is they're always ready to take and spin the narrative.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. Today is the 1 year anniversary of a very important geopolitical event. It was the pager attack by Israel against Hezbollah.
Yeah.
I was reading Al Akbar newspaper this morning. It's a pain to read because you got to kind of right. Well, if you go to Chrome, you can open the page and it'll translate it for you. But the imagery of the guys with no eyes, no fingers, and stories about them all over the paper. And they, even though it's a Hezbollah mouthpiece, is very critical of Hezbollah for missing what Israel did.
Hmm.
And this was an amazing operation. I mean, this was stunning. Now, people think that it's cruel, and this will sound very unchristian, but this is war.
Yeah.
They would have slaughtered is they would have come across the border and slaughtered Israelis. This was their plan. They had tunnel networks. They had planned for this for a very long time to do in north. In fact, the plan was that they would do it Hamas from the south and Hezbollah from the north, and they would meet in Tel Aviv.
Hmm.
And their goal was to slaughter at least 1 million Israelis. So Israel had to defend itself. And I will say, listen, when you boil it down, I've watched these guys being led around. I've watched the videos. They go to Islamic holy sites. One commentator said, this is how you have to fight the war in the Middle East. You have to humiliate your opponent, and you have to put them in a position where they will be reminded every day that they're not even really capable of attacking you, let alone ending their life. They're a burden to their family for the rest of their life. And that's very, very cruel and unchristian. I get that. But we live in a real world, and I think people should understand, as I was sort of, I think I've got my basic outline edited down to 4 hours now for a 45-minute talk that I'm giving on Saturday in Rockwall, Texas. The prophecies of the Bible are they're geopolitical, they're real, and while they're somewhat fuzzy around the edges, they will unfold in a real world that
Yeah.
people like you and I are living in at the time. And I think we're living in that time. And so it's going to be very difficult to sort of analyze everything as we go forward. But you're seeing this control of the narrative by the enemies of the Judeo Christian West.
Yeah.
And I would include Russia in that. I would include certainly Iran, the Islamic countries, whether they say it or not. We just saw a hate fest in Qatar the other day. 2 days ago?
Hmm.
I just downloaded 5 hours of video of the heads of state speaking, and I'm going to be editing that for different parts of different talks.
Do you think this is where the West has missed it? In terms of how they've, no matter what administration or what country has tried to get involved and to bring peace in the Middle East, they're missing the fact that this is not a case of land, it's not a case of economics, it's a case of ideologies. And when you look at this New York Declaration coming out, this I think it's 142 countries now that have signed it. Do you think that again it's a missing of ideologies, or do you think it's purposeful? So I've always had it in the back of my mind that there is a purposeful reason for open borders. I believe it's the divide et imperia, the idea of divide and rule. It's create chaos so that you can bring about control, or do you think that this is just completely that those in charge are completely ignorant of the fact that it's an ideological conflict that we're watching. It's an ideological war, and these are entrenched, again, ideological beliefs. It's not a case of there can be some sort of semblance of peace when one wants to eradicate. Certainly, uh, the charter of Hamas wants to eradicate the Jewish people. Is it ideological or is it ignorance in that way?
I actually think it's in some respects it's prophetic. It's so difficult for me to grasp and understand. So I'm watching videos this morning of Ursula von der Leyen. I'm
Yeah.
sure you love her in Ireland. I'm listen. I don't know how to say this without sounding very cruel. You're do you have like a prime minister in Ireland?
So down south you have a Taoiseach, and up here we have a First Minister. And
Is
they're
he?
both well. The first minister up here is Sinn Féin. It's off the shit. So basically, the political ring of
Is
the
this the
political
little
ring of the
gray hair
island.
guy?
No, up here it's Michelle O'Neill. She is
Okay, no,
Sinn Féin, and she's off the political wing of the IRA. Who, by the way, the new IRA in 2011, it came out through an MI5 release document. Were trained by Hezbollah, were funded by Iran, but that's by and by.
so the little he looks like a troll. He looks like the troll from a movie. It must be the Ireland guy,
Yeah,
not the Northern Ireland guy.
yeah,
I mean, like he's like a cat out of central casting. I see him today.
uh huh,
Any country that supports Israel in any way should be removed from the UN. von der
Yeah.
Leyen, we are going to sanction Israel, stop intelligence sharing. We'll work with Yad Vashem, but everything else is off the table.
Hmm.
There's videos of her, and it's like there is a deception going on, in my opinion. And by the way, I don't think Israel's perfect. There've been a lot
No.
of mistakes made.
Yeah.
They didn't
But
they didn't
Zachariah
believe
well
their own
was,
intelligence.
yeah.
Um, and I don't know. It's so hard. And then here's my own president. I always tell people you can like some of the stuff Trump does, but you got to be transactional with him.
Hmm.
And if he does stuff you don't like and you think it's wrong, you need to speak out. And so here I am. We're entering into a defense pact with Qatar, and he's admonishing Israel, don't you dare do that again.
Yeah.
And so, well, wait a minute, can't the MAGA people would say, well, we America first, we shouldn't be interfering in Israel's affairs, and they'll say, I heard them say it. Let Israel finish. They started it. Let them finish it. And then when they do try to finish it, we step in and say, no, you can't do that. It's total insanity everywhere that
Hmm.
I look. And so we're doing a defense pact with Qatar
Yeah.
because they have a base. We have a base there. Listen, if that base wasn't there, there would not be a Qatar. That's the only reason that Qatar exists, and yet they interfere in our elections, our universities, their Muslim Brotherhood,
Hmm.
and one of the Israel did a very big article about a month ago on the close connection between Erdogan of Turkey and Qatar.
Mm.
And you could add Syria in that. And so one of my graphics that I put up, I made up a Qatari chess piece that's the flag imposed on one of the waterfront towers, the Qatari flag with an oil rig on top. And I have a graphic where Erdogan is hugging it because he loves his Qatari money. But he's all behind what happened in Syria.
Yeah.
And so I don't think, and I'm talking about Turkey in my talk, um, I don't think we know they're part of this Ezekiel 38-39 thing. There's no doubt about this. And we don't talk about it that much. I've been studying it for years. I'm just telling you, is this stuff is so fresh and real, and people say, "Oh, you're engaged in newspaper exegesis." No, no, no. I look at what the Bible says, and then the newspaper kind of blasts,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is significant."
I also think that when you're looking at the source of things, it's not newspaper exegesis. Whenever you're considering the source of these ideologies, you know, I think most of us would agree on that Islam is, I don't believe that he heard from an angel. I believe that, like Muhammad first articulated that he believed it was a demon. I do believe it's a demonic.
Yeah, yeah, like
Yeah,
demons,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And the same with the communist regime. Actually, last night I was teaching about Marxist. Actually, Karl Marx writing satanic plays like Ulanim, his obsession with Mephistopheles, the demon character from the Faustian folklore, and how he saw him as the hero, and he was doing all that while writing the Communist Manifesto. So when you look at these, I guess, ideologies that are counter to the Judeo-Christian framework, it's hard to sort of it's hard to align them with anything positive rather than actually see them for what they are, that they're coming from a demonic source. So it's a spiritual battle, it's a spiritual war. And like you pointed out, with Turkey's involvement with Syria, it's a reshaping happening. I believe, and I've said this for a while, we're in an interregnum period between one order collapsing and a new order rising. And obviously, I believe this is the order that's rising is the going to be the 10 Kings system. And in that, I know that you do technology roundtables.
Yeah, we got another one coming up on October 1st.
Would you ascribe that this sort of new world order that could possibly be arising on the scene is going to be a technocratic world order?
You know, I, I've known Patrick Wood for a long, long time.
Hmm.
Um, he actually they spent about, I don't know, a week or 10 days here many years ago. So we had a lot of long conversations. It was very instructive because Patrick's sort of like the grandfather of understanding this. Can I share something with you? This is so
Yeah.
weird because I talked about it Sunday. I do think this technocratic thing is a very big deal. We
Hmm.
now have one of the big technocrats last night or Monday night starting a lecture series for 4 weeks, 4 Mondays
Peter
on
Thiel.
the Antichrist, Peter
Yeah.
Thiel. Now,
Yeah.
how, and he talks about it all the time. And now you've all know Harari, the sort of that little his medieval historian guy who talks about this stuff all the time. He's, I don't know, he must have taken a sabbatical for a while, and now he's back and he's all over the place.
Hmm.
And I will remind people that in 2015, 10 years ago, he went to Google headquarters and said, I love coming to Silicon Valley because, now listen, this is an atheistic medieval historian.
Yeah.
He said, I love coming to Silicon Valley. I've got the tape, the video, because it is here that the religions that will control humanity in the 21st century are being created.
Hmm.
So we can dismiss that, but I think maybe you ought to take them seriously. But this technocratic thing with AI, and AI is very, I think the bigger issue is tech intrusion into everything and hoovering up everybody's data so that, we went from a little foldable phone to where, I'm mentioning to a lady at the golf club, oh, where did you get that the electric golf cart, battery powered golf cart that you walk
Hmm.
with? For 4 or 5 weeks, I get dozens of ads for that particular model every day in my Facebook feed.
Yeah.
So I saw her this morning and I said, I'm not going to ask you about your cart. And she goes, oh, yeah, because you're tired of seeing the ads. And I'm like, yeah. So I'm going to read you something. So I was doing some research on Babylon and what is this Babylon of the end time? So there's a whole bunch of different views. But I just did a Google search on New Babylon. And a picture popped up of a city like all
Hmm.
these towers bunched together right after I had just been researching about what's the status of Neom. And I'm going to tell you what this guy drew in 1961 looks a lot like the Neom that Mohammed bin
Really?
Salman is building. Yeah, it's very weird. I just, but I want you to listen to this so we know that, what are we going to do with people? They won't have jobs. And Noval Harari says, well, we'll give them drugs and games, which sounds like a Steven Spielberg movie, which, by the way, was based on Columbus, Ohio, the area I live in. But just listen to this paragraph and put it in the context of AI. New Babylon, and this is the term he used, by the way, 1961. New Babylon wants to be the environment in which we could live, should live, would want to live. If the factors to prevent it are overcome, the design is therefore based on the complete automation of production, on an a-commercial, i.e., on a needs-based distribution of foodstuffs and consumer goods, from the comprehensive exploitation of the earth, the total urbanization by robotizing labor. The population has free disposal of its time. The interior of New Babylon is focused on a free and creative way of life.
Wow.
That's 1961. And I'm just go look up there's a YouTube channel called Giga Projects,
Hmm.
and they've done several things. And Neom's changing; it's not going to be as big. But the focus thing that they're doing is this. And one of the architects who was involved with Neom said, I have the video. He said in an interview, Neom, this is our Babylon.
Wow. See that actually correlates with a lot of my thinking, and actually
Mm-hmm.
where I, because I know that a lot of people would place. Some people think New York. Some people have got these ideas that they're in. There's something to do with America. Babylon, something to do with America. I've always looked at it into maybe the maybe I'm just being a bit generous to myself. I've looked at the Babylonian Empire territory as opposed to, just Iraq, just that central focus.
Right.
But have you ever heard of Game B?
You remind me of what it is. It sounds familiar, but
So this goes into the technocratic side of things. Back in, I think it was 2012, September 2012, there was a gathering of uh, sort of cultural evolutionists, what you call cultural hackers. These technocrats, these people who have invested a lot into advancement of technology, and they gathered and they were meeting, and it was basically like a think tank where they would gather and they would have these thoughts. It lasted probably for about 2 years and then went into spore mode. This is their terms. This is people like Jordan Hall. I think Peter Thiel and stuff were associated with it. Other sort of technocrats were associated with it. But I
you
went
said
on a
spore mode, like something
yes,
that might be in Star Trek or something like that.
kind of like that. Yeah. So in the sense that they were coming up with all these ideas of how to reshape society, they believed that on the current course, on the current model, what they would call Game A, the way the world is right now, we were headed for disaster. So they wanted to reshape society. Initially, they started to try and create a different political party, but that fell apart. And then they said they sort of broke into two different camps. One camp wanted to reshape society through the likes of technology and legislation, the likes of bringing in a new economic system, um, new technology for digitalization of identification, so digital IDs. So all the things that we're kind of saying now that we knew and know that are in scripture that are kind of foretold when we look through the book of Revelation, we can read and assume that's what they're talking about. The same, the other side, the other group said that it doesn't matter how much we change society in terms of technology, the biggest problem for humanity is independence of thought. The fact that we all think differently. So then the belief there was for to get to this game B element, thought had to be cohesive. Now I would argue that basically from 2019 to 2020, it relaunched again. Game B relaunched again. I would argue that legislation such as online safety acts, all of these different things. The idea that if I look something up on climate, I've given this example before because I had this on Facebook because we're in the UK, looked it up about, and it was a climate documentary that didn't go along with the government narrative. I had an age verification where I have to enter in my age and my identification to be able to view it. And that kind of I'm just saying, is if we're talking about a 10 king system that is foretold in scripture, and that 10 king system could be some sort of technocratic system, I think that maybe there's some weight to that in the sense that the certainly the individuals around this think tank have kind of been involved in helping society get to that level.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, it's sometimes you wonder if they sit back and think like, wow, we got further with this than we ever thought we would.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, boy, you know, kind of pulled that one over on them. So I don't know. That's very interesting. I mean, I think the one thing that we have trouble with in our community is really connecting the dots
Hmm.
or just sitting down and bouncing ideas off one another. So that was kind of my goal. Because when you go to a conference, my goal with the round table or round tables that I've done is, I go to a conference and everybody's talk is interesting, but it's really interesting back in the green room with the other guys,
Yeah.
sitting around throwing ideas out or going to dinner with them. So what I try to do with that is want to take that experience and kind of put it in front of people
Hmm.
so they can see what goes on because we don't um, we just got to bounce these ideas out a little bit more, and sometimes we kind of get wedded to our idea of
Yeah.
how it's going to work out.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I think the Lord is up there throwing, oh, you think that's how it's going to work out? Handle this. And this analogy may be lost on people in the UK. Here's a cosmic curveball for you that you're going to have to try to deal with, or a cosmic knuckleball or whatever you would do in soccer. Or I don't even know if you would do anything like that in cricket, but that's one game I really do not understand. But anyway, it's sort of like, yeah, this is going to work out, but maybe not quite the way that you think it's going to work out.
Hmm. Well, let me. Can I show you a quick
Sure.
video, and I want your opinion on this. As obviously, this is a BBC video. It's UK. I want to sort of know where America is on this.
Okay.
So Hannah, this is the border of the future.
Except that there isn't a border. There's no desks.
There's no desks, there's no fumbling for your passport, and importantly, no queues.
Just a corridor.
Just the corridor.
But a corridor with some cameras.
So what we're doing is, as individuals walk through the corridor, the two cameras here are picking up their facial biometrics. And we're using an artificial intelligence algorithm. And what that's really doing is that it's identifying in that frame where the faces are. And then it's building a list of all your features on your face.
I can see there, actually, it's picked up who we are. So it knows, my name knows your name.
Yes, so it's taken that from the digital passport that we submitted earlier.
So digital passports. What is it like on your side of the Atlantic?
Well, I think in some respects you're a little bit ahead of us,
Mhm.
in part because we're a little bit more spread out.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit more difficult. But I will confess, 2 years ago I spoke in Scotland, and I remember driving from Dornoch down through Inverness, and I was going back to um, the Glasgow area.
Hmm.
And the number of cameras that I encountered, average speed cameras, I
Yeah.
couldn't figure out. I mean, well, what average? Now, it appeared there were people that knew because they would go by me at like 120 miles an hour. And then I would catch up to them when I was still doing 50. So they must have known how the average thing worked, but there were cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
I
We
went in
have
and bought
one.
something at an Asda store, and I went to pay, and it it took my picture, and a guy came up to approve my American Express card. I walked out to thing, the car, and I thought, oh, I forgot the thing I came for. I was going to buy some bottled water, so I came back in. I bought that, and when I walked up to the checkout, my picture popped up
Yeah.
that had just been taken. I was already in the database. And by the way, I'm going to Israel, and we have smart. I want to. There's some kind of special secure ID for our driver's licenses now.
Hmm.
It's probably leading to the digital ID and that type of thing. And you don't really have a choice. And when you're going to Israel, you don't really have a choice either. I'm pretty sure I get to Israel, they'll know who I am.
Yeah.
I'm pretty like I applied for a visa the other day, and they said it could take 72 hours to get your visa approved. I put in my credit card information, I clicked submit, and I got the approval not in 72 hours, in 0.72 seconds. I was like, I called my tour operator. I said, "Is this right?" She goes, "Wow, that's pretty good for Israel." And I'm like, so I think I'm in a database someplace that
I
sort of
think,
has me on a
yeah,
approved list.
I think we all are. We've had those cameras at shops. I can't even remember when they came in. They've been there for quite some time, and it's funny because I'm not a big shopper, but when I go with my wife, sometimes she'll put the hand in front of the camera, and then I have to point out, look at all the other cameras. They've already got our image. It's okay.
Nice try.
Yeah.
Well, and look, in Israel too, you'll encounter a lot of cameras in Israel. I mean, because it's a security thing,
Yeah.
and they're all interconnected, and they've been doing this for a long time, and they sort of lead the world in that technology. And there's a good side to that technology, so that they can find, like when they do the Hamas turnover of hostages, and all the Hamas guys are there with balaclavas on to cover their face. They know within minutes, if not seconds, who every one of those guys is.
Yeah.
Because they can identify the bumps under the balaclava.
Well, they've been doing it. So I know the Metropolitan Police have been, and certainly the police over here have been applying real-time facial recognition, and it's all linked up centrally so that you can identify someone when they go into a shop in case they've got a record or whatever. And I think this is something I warned about in 2019 because I looked at the Chinese social credit system, and it wasn't until March 2020 it was sort of like really finalized into law, but it was being used. And it wasn't that I thought, oh, well, that's just a communist country that's operating that system. It was when I read the Western leaders' reaction to this system and how they were, everybody from Justin Trudeau and Boris Johnson were all hailing it as a step forward in technology. And to me, that just sort of thought, at that point, I said, watch out, we're going in that direction. And it's crept in slowly, but I think we're here. Can I ask, are you okay to take a couple of questions, or do you
Yeah,
have
I'm
to shoot?
fine. I don't have anything planned right. So I don't know how long you want to go. So it's up to
Yeah,
you.
we'll go for a bit longer. I want to sort of just while I get onto the Discord site to get the questions. The biggest thing that has really hit, I think, both of us that we've been talking about is the vitriol and the horrible reactions and the fragmentation of society, and that's been highlighted off the death of Charlie Kirk. And I've got this video. It's a minute long, or just over a minute long. It's someone else talking about it, but I want to show you this because
Sure.
at its root, I think all of this is demonic. Let me just.
This woman, Pat, you tell me in your heart of hearts, she doesn't look demon possessed. She's openly talking about, and I'm assuming, allegedly, that she's talking about other people that she wants dead, and I think it's Trump. Listen, guys, pay attention about what's inside this woman's soul, and tell me she doesn't scare the hell out of you. Go ahead, Rob. Watch.
We're gonna push it. We're gonna see how far we can push it.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Look what you're up against.
It's a witch.
I was not kidding when I said if you were gonna get the job done,
Oh my God.
there were two better candidates.
Weird. Who's she talking about? Z.
And furthermore, when that happens, and it will. It will.
Wow, no, I don't look.
Not only will we be insensitive, that'll be the least.
Is this a real
Look,
thing?
this is a real person. That is the devil inside of you. Look at her.
It's gonna be the biggest fucking celebration, the biggest, most beautiful
That's a-
celebration on
Rob, you
planet
can
Earth.
stop.
Apologies for the swear word. I didn't actually
That's okay.
realize that was there.
I've been to Walmart, so I've heard those words. I worked at
But
a law firm. So,
that just, I saw that video earlier and it struck me. That was her reaction to Charlie Kirk's assassination, and she's saying there's two other people that should have been, in her opinion. Is it is it just me, or is this demonic at its core? The
well, I
reaction.
think it's demonic. I mean, you could sort of see it a little bit the other night at the Emmy TV Awards here in the U.S., where a Jewish actress got up and talked about how bad Israel was and how great the Palestinians were. You have to be really deceived to believe that.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, I, it's so bizarre. You know, so when Ursula von der Leyen, you see a sort of a tamped down version of that young lady that you just showed,
Hmm.
because they talk about Israel, but they don't talk about 800,000 dead in Sudan,
Or
850,000 dead
Nigeria.
in
Yeah.
Yemen, and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of Christians slaughtered in Nigeria and in the Congo, the Central African Republic, on and on and on and on. Syria, about 1 million people. Nobody talks about that, but
Yeah.
Israel seems to. And so I see all these guys, Lutheran friends and stuff. Oh well, this Israel thing, it's all over. Listen, it's right there in front of your face, guy. And I don't know. It's very, yeah. I think it's demonic. You know. So I want to say this about Charlie. So it's been troubling to see Charlie. Listen, I will say I was extremely critical of Charlie on a few occasions.
Hmm.
That's fine. Um, and I've never met him, so I wasn't close enough to get to him. But like I said, I think when he platformed Tucker, he did not know what Tucker stood for, because we all have a problem with this, Gary. People get into I call it the friend zone.
Yeah.
People get into your friend zone, and it gets a little bit difficult to really objectively analyze them. Sometimes you got to step back and maybe ask somebody else that's not in the friend zone, what do you think of this? And so there were times to be critical of him. I think one thing that's bothered me is I've had a number of people, he faked his death. He's now living in Israel with his Jewish masters. I had people posting that in my timeline and comments. They're gone.
Hmm.
Others are saying, oh, all of this is a Masonic ritual. I don't know that. I do know there are people coming to faith in Jesus Christ, and we're not idolizing Charlie Kirk. We are grateful that the Lord has used him
Hmm.
to bring people to faith in Jesus Christ, because it's not, it's sort of like the guys talking about the rapture next week. Um, they're focused more on the rapture than Jesus, I think.
Yeah.
That's the problem that I have with it.
Yeah.
So I, and boy, I probably the most vitriolic comment I made was because somebody took it, says, oh, Charlie was killed at 10:23 Mountain Time, which is 9:23 in Jerusalem. That means the rapture's happening on 9:23. I mean, that's divination that's clearly prohibited in Scripture.
Hmm.
And boy, the most vicious comment I've gotten the last week was from somebody who bought into that I was
Yeah.
denying Jesus and his bride and the feasts. And by the way, I think there's fall feasts yet to be fulfilled.
Hmm.
So I'm not dismissing them, and I've talked about it. But the problem sometimes is if you don't talk about everything that they think is important, and everything that you talk about, then you disagree with me, and that's a very postmodern, narcissistic approach to analyzing what somebody says.
And I guess that goes back to the love growing cold. One of the things that I actually was encouraged by the career of Charlie Kirk is that he could he could certainly converse with those he disagreed with and still remain cordial. You know, he didn't have to get all emotional just because he disagreed with them.
What did Charlie do? He talked to people.
Yeah.
He and by the way, do not dismiss the fact that he was shot in the throat.
Yeah.
That was intentional
Hmm.
because it was sending a message: we will silence you if we don't like you, just like that crazy lady you played.
Yeah. Well, actually, we've got our first question here
Sure.
from Emmaus Road Productions, and it kind of hits on what you just brought up. With the ease to post on social media, there has been an explosion of thousands of rapture confirmation videos for 9/23, 23rd of September. Should we speak against this or let it run its course?
My personal opinion, I mean, I probably have a different view on rapture timing than a lot of my friends. I'm by our way, I'm willing for tomorrow. That's fine. That'd be great. Until we are occupied until he comes.
Hmm.
And so I think that I'm troubled by it. I so when I was this is kind of a long answer to a question that maybe isn't appropriate, but I, I've I've been concerned about what I would call the hyper charismatic movement
Hmm.
and I'm very reluctant to say the Lord told me. And I have friends who talk about it all the time, and it just seems to me to be, I don't know, I have trouble with it because I grew up around a cult in college that engaged in this stuff, and the Lord wasn't talking to them.
Hmm.
Okay, and I kept I would I'm like I'm like 18, 19 years old, and I'm encountering these people in the town where I went to college, and my thought was, well, the Lord spoke to me, and I wanted to say, well, the Lord's speaking to me right now, and He's telling me you're a nut. You know, I mean, do they cancel each other out? I'm whenever somebody starts saying that, I
Hmm.
had a dream, I had this, I had, you know,
I can be honest.
it just seems to be very me focused in a lot of cases.
I've had, I probably had rapture dreams 10 years ago, but the rapture didn't happen. There was no date. It was just a dream of the rapture event happening. And I would say that everything that we do and everything that we say and everything that we see and discern at the times, nothing can ever differentiate or take a different path from Scripture. We can all have dreams, and and I don't negate that if that somebody can have a dream, but it doesn't go against Scripture. And like you said, if somebody has a dream that the rapture is on a Tuesday and another person has a dream on a Wednesday, which one's hearing from God? And I think that that's the very essence of the rapture for me is that it's the doctrine of imminency. It's that
Right.
imminent factor that no man knows the day nor the hour. And people are trying to counter that now, and they're trying to go into nuances of the Greek and trying to go against what Jesus said in this. Now, my thing is the same as you. The rapture will happen. I have no doubt about that. When it happens, I have no clue. I have friends who are mid trib, post trib. I'm pre. I don't care. I just say, it's going to happen. And when it happens, then we'll be in the presence of God. But until that time, like you say, we have to occupy and we have to walk in the presence of God on this earth. We have to walk in communion with Him and make sure that the Holy Spirit is leading us, the Word of God is leading us. And I think that to me, I just get really uncomfortable with date setting because the minute that date passes, there's going to be someone, and it may not be the person who's talking about it, but there's going to be someone who's going to have a crash in terms of their faith and their belief because what they were holding out for didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, so my own view on imminency is, but I use Charlie Kirk as an example. Charlie Kirk got up on stage
Hmm.
around 10 a.m. Mountain Time a week ago
Yeah.
today. He probably kissed his wife, hugged his kids. He did not know at that moment that his meeting with the Lord was much more imminent than he thought.
Hmm.
And I think and so he was defending his ideas and faith and that type of thing. And so that's sort of a good example that we don't
Yeah.
know when that moment's. Nobody knows their exit date. Charlie was 31. I
Yeah.
mean, statistically, he would say, "I'm going to be around here for a long time," and it can change that quickly. So we ought to always be living for the Lord, regardless. Um, so that's sort of how I view it, and I,
Yeah.
I I do think that our meeting with the Lord is always imminent. I
Hmm.
mean, a very famous Hollywood actor died in his sleep. Robert Redford, the other
Robert
night,
Redford.
known
Yeah.
all over. I mean, I look at newspapers in Hezbollah newspapers in Lebanon. They have a big front page thing on Robert Redford. He didn't know when he was going. I thought he laid down and went to bed, and he thought, I'll get up tomorrow and I'll go work on a movie or something, or
Hmm.
write, or see my family, and that didn't happen. So we always need to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So if the rapture happened, I'm all for it. But I also know too that statistically, at least right now, my meeting with the Lord is it. I don't know if there's such a thing as increasing eminence or not because of my age, but I think we need to think about it in that light.
And there's something profound that he was actually talking about Charlie, that he was, like you say, defending his beliefs right up to the last second. There's something in that is I don't know, is intrinsically profound for me anyway. So our next question is from Vindog.
By the
Um,
way, my father passed away sitting at his desk working on what he thought was going to be the Sunday sermon.
really?
It was a Wednesday, and the sermon was. I often think God has a sense of humor.
Mhm.
The sermon was the reality of the devil. And so I'm thinking, like, so Dad's working on this sermon about Satan, and then he's standing in the presence of the Lord.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, like, talk about a shock factor. Anyway, so you had a
All right.
question from Vinny.
Yeah. I think this is on Babylon. Yeah. Is Mystery Babylon in Iraq?
So that is one of the views.
Mhm.
So I sort of take an open look at this because I'm also looking at the technocracy and sort of the religious, technological aspects of this. And that's one possibility. What I look at is where does it meet the threshold that we say this is that which was prophesied?
Mhm.
So for years, I've been talking about developments going on in the area of Babylon. 20 years ago, there was an article in the Newsweek Washington Post blog. Solve world peace by moving the UN headquarters to Babylon. I
Yeah.
have it. You can find it on the Internet Archive. So look, I collect that, and I know there's developments going on there, and they're building a port, and they're building canal and railways, and everybody's doing that.
Mhm.
You see that in Gaza, we see that in Saudi Arabia, we see that with Neom, we see that biggest building in the world right now that they're building is the Mukab in Riyadh, which, by
Mhm.
the way, will be the location, not the Mukab, but Riyadh will be the location of the World Economic Forum
Yeah.
starting next winter.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. Is that just a coincidence? You know, I don't think so. And so
Or
all the technocrats are going to get together, and King Mohammed bin Salman's been pushing this stuff, and the ultimate 15-minute city is Neom.
yeah, and then even if you look back at the 16th of December 2024, they had the Riyadh Declaration in terms of artificial intelligence and pushing the world, which I find when you read through this really interesting that by 2030 they want to lead the way to bring the world to a global digital ID and digital currency, not a national one. So I just, yeah, I agree with you on your assessment of that.
And we are currently at the point, at least it may have changed, but I think it's true, with the big building projects in Saudi Arabia, which go beyond Neom and the Mckibben. 20% of the world's steel supply is going to Saudi Arabia,
Wow.
production, and 10% of world logistics is in is Saudi Arabia. So look, could Iraq rise up like that? And so the issue that I have, Gary, is that you know they're doing some work here. That means the rapture is closer, but I don't think Iraq is anywhere near the threshold that it would need to be called
Yeah.
the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. So that's and so other people they short circuit and they say, well, it must be New York, and or London or the Vatican. And so I sort of like I call it my baskets. I have a Babylon and Iraq basket. I have a Saudi Arabia basket. I have a Vatican basket. I have a New York basket. And then we also have to look at the threshold issue and timing of when it comes to prominence. So if you're saying that Iraq is going to be that, it's going to take. I mean, when does it meet that threshold? I don't
Yeah.
know yet. First of all, I don't think it'll be finished. Just like the Tower of Babel was not finished before the Lord intervened. I think that's a pattern.
Yeah.
But what's the threshold? And you look at places like Dubai, which has taken 30 years to get to where it is, at least 30 years. So I don't know. I don't think it magically falls out of the sky. But then when you sort of take in this virtual reality technocratic aspect, maybe it can come about much more quickly
Yeah.
than even I think.
We've got an interesting question here from Yvonne Kennedy. Um, this is something I've been thinking about. So the question is, will Trump support a two-state solution when he speaks on the 23rd? Now, I know that obviously there's the New York Declaration, but it needs to have, if it's going to have any sort of substantive measures, it needs to be supported by the Security Council. And at the minute, if you're looking at the Security Council members, certainly out of the big five, America's the one that you would expect a veto from. I don't know what you think.
It's probably the only one to expect a
Yeah.
veto from. And we think of that, well, America's going to stand that. But, we know under by the way, is Trump's end imminent? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, he's 79 years old.
Yeah.
And so all these things. Listen, if we had done this a week ago yesterday, we would not even have mentioned Charlie Kirk.
No.
Okay, so and so I've been seeing this thing with the two-state solution bandied about for a long time. I happened to be in Washington D.C. when the day they signed the Oslo Accords, and it was just happenstance. It wasn't planned or anything like that, and the whole thing was very strange. I had a very good friend who was a Jewish guy from high school who was a congressman from Arizona, and I went down to see him the next day. He'd been over at the White House the day before. We talked about it. That was 32 years ago. So I don't know, Gary. I think that I don't know. I was very troubled, as were many others, about the whatever the prosperity and peace plan
Mm-hmm.
for Israel. And it clearly included some aspects of a Palestinian state. It says in the document
Yeah.
the Palestinian state, and so I was troubled by that. I think Bill Koenig was troubled by that, and Bill will point out that that plan came out in the morning, and that afternoon they all got called to the White House for a meeting about Charlie Vector 019er.
Mm-hmm.
Do not mess around with that land. It will. It's not a good thing to do. So we just saw, 2 days ago, we saw the meeting of the Arab Islamic emergency special meeting of the Arab Islamic Conference to talk about that. And it's, regardless of whether, I mean, we look at it and we think it's so stupid, right? It doesn't make any sense. But 142 of the nations of the world just voted for it. You can
Yeah.
go read the New York Declaration, and it's going to be front and center starting Sunday.
Yeah.
So I just think it's been pushed for so long. And if I don't know if you've been to Israel or not, but when you go up, by the way, the area that they want to force Israel to give up is the biblical heartland of Israel,
Mm-hmm.
Judea and Samaria. Bethel, Ai, Shem, Dan. All of these places are in that area they want to make Israel give up. And I think that, and it's so interesting to me that the land is being restored to these people at this time. And
Yeah.
the historical archaeological evidence to support the land. They just had a big ceremony. Go look up the videos. My group's going to be there in a few weeks. The pilgrimage road from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. By the way, it doesn't go from the Pool of Siloam to someplace in the city of David. It goes all the way to the Temple Mount.
Mm-hmm.
So I reject all these, I think,
Yeah.
crazy ideas that the Temple Mount was in the city of David. I asked one of the archaeologists when I was there a few years ago, and he kind of looked at me like, I said, was the Temple Mount here? And he looked at me like I was the dumbest person he'd ever met.
Yeah.
And because there's no evidence of, there would be debris all over the place if it was. You don't cart away stones that heavy. So anyway, I just think that it's a very interesting, with all the convergence geopolitically, you have the restoration of their connection to the land being made more evident day by day.
Yeah. This question's for me. This is from Blessed, aka Dora. Pastor Gary, did you already get a digital ID? So the digital IDs have been rolling out across here. I will have to have one by November, simply because we have the church, and as directors of the church, HMRC are making everybody sign up to a digital ID this year by November. So I'm holding out until November, and then I'm forced to. But the digital ID is not the mark of the beast, just so everybody knows.
Weren't you just talking about that with Tom Hughes the other day?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been rolling out in different manners and different forms. But the thing that you said earlier, they've already got you, as soon as they've got your biometrics, their facial recognition, they've got you on a database anyway.
Yeah, I think that there's we have to talk about, when does something like this become the mark of the beast?
Yeah.
I've thought a lot about that. And, there's this thing that if you do this, you cannot be saved.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's, I kind of think about the unpardonable sin, and is there some kind of connection between that and what you have to pledge to be for the mark of the beast? I really don't know the answer to that question, but I think that it's a very interesting thing, and know that the Gates Foundation and other projects to develop digital ID. Okay, that's to develop a that was to develop a digital footprint
Yeah.
for the people in the world that are not yet connected.
Hmm.
Okay, it might be a billion people or whatever. All of us in the West, we are connected.
Yeah.
You carry the connection around in your pocket every day, and good luck getting away from it now.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a convenience to it too. I order something at a restaurant, I pull up my phone, bing, it's paid for, and I get a confirmation immediately from my bank saying, "Did you make this charge?" So we all have digital IDs
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
It's more formalized in some of the, like a driver's license or something like that, with some of
Hmm.
the things put in it. I don't think that's the mark of the beast.
No. No. Um, do you see World War III starting pre-tribulation or during the second seal? If there is a
That's a very big topic for discussion. So the question is, are the seals open after the start of the 70th week, before?
Mhm.
And I will tell you, I've got friends all over the place, and I'm not going to say, nah, they're confined to the 70th week. There's a revelation of all these things. And so the question is, are we going to have World War III?
Mhm.
Why don't you go ask Vladimir Putin that question?
Yeah.
Because Vladimir Putin would say, we're in World War IV. We've already had World War III. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, look, what's he say? Normal isn't coming back, but Jesus is. The era that we're in, every year, for the last 4 years or so, at the beginning of the year for my prophecy update, I say, or early on in the year. Now I do it the first Sunday.
Yeah.
So how far are we going to get into this year before we long for the good old days of last year, which we all thought were pretty bad? So, and I think that's the way it's going to be till the Lord returns. I don't see that this is rolling back or slowing down or anything.
Yeah. I would the way I look at it is I look at the sort of comparative texts of Zechariah 6 and Revelation 6 and the orders that I think that war, certainly chaos, which we're seeing now, and like you said, you know, some already consider this what's happening right now a world war. It may be a war by proxy, because certainly I wouldn't say Ukraine is operating alone. They're the proxy of NATO, and Russia is also, got the BRICS nations, certainly got the alliances around, when it comes to these war games with Belarus and China. But I would look at in Zechariah 6, it starts with the red horse. Yes, I don't see that as released because it's shackled to the chariot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Revelation 6, it's after the seal's been opened. But the red horse is the first one mentioned in the sequence compared to the white horse. So I would say that part of the chaos before maybe the tribulation moment is a chaotic element of war, and some could say that's Ezekiel 38. Some could say it's what we're seeing now with certainly the focus on Zechariah 12 and the push towards, focusing on Israel. Um, but it's interesting. I would say definitely. I've always believed that when the Antichrist arrives, I think it fits Scripture that he arrives or comes on the scene as Mister Fix-It to the world's chaotic problems.
Right.
You know, um,
Now, Peter Thiel might disagree with you, but
I haven't listened to the lectures yet.
well, no, well, you're not going to because they're not public or
Yeah.
published. But he did that interview with Ross Douthat, and he goes, "Well, you say that the Antichrist is going to be somebody who's going to protect us from these things, but then you're creating the system. Like, are you the Antichrist?" it got real quiet first for a little bit. It was the very definition of a pregnant pause in the interview.
I actually saw that. I found it fascinating because even when the pause was over, he was like, and he couldn't get the words out. But which is always a bit telling. And the thing is like that all for me that sort of hints towards that game B collective. That idea that these individuals are now they saw in their opinion the world going in one direction and thought they could reshape it in their own image. And I don't know, maybe Peter Thiel and people like Jordan Hall are awakening to things because Jordan Hall has come out as a Christian now. Um, Maybe they're awakening to what Scripture says and actually wising up a little bit. Um, okay, the last question is for me because it's about here. I take it. Why is Ireland split like that? Does it go back to the Catholic and Protestant clashes? Yeah, it's more. It's more nuanced than that. Um, Generally, this all goes into the historical element of home rule and breaking away from the British Empire, but Northern Ireland remains part of the British Empire in terms of part of the Union, the United Kingdom. So we are, it's more unionist and nationalist. It doesn't always fall under the, um, although people try and say it falls under the religious element of Protestant and Catholic, it doesn't always fall under that. It's unionist and nationalist because I know Catholics who are unionists, and I know Protestants who are probably more aligned with a Republican nationalist identity. But it does go into that. That's why it's split. Um, Let me ask you one more question myself, if that's okay.
Sure.
If you were to say that there is something um, like because I saw Amir Safadi put this up, and I kind of believe this as well that this autumn it's already looking like it's crazy, right? It's already looking like it's going with the declaration, with the war games that are going on, and all of the different with the European central bank digital currency hitting its next phase, and all of this. What is the big thing that you're looking at or you're aware at that your eyes are trained on and that you're going, this is the one to watch, this is the thing to watch?
Well, I'll share this at my talk Saturday. Many years ago there was a prophecy conference in Phoenix. Bill Koenig and I were there, and I got invited over to dinner with the speakers, which included Chuck Miller, Roger Oakland, Chuck Missler, and David Hawking. So, by happenstance, maybe divine intervention, I don't know, Bill and I ended up sitting with Chuck. And so I asked Chuck, I'd known Chuck for a while, and I said, do you get excited about all this stuff that's going on? So this is like 2008, 2009, maybe 2010 or 2010. And he says, yeah, I do, but I'm really watching Turkey.
Mm.
So I've been sort of watching this for a while, and so I'll talk about this so sign up for the live stream at the Hope for Our Times, and you can hear it. And it's sort of a compilation of the stuff I've been saying about Turkey for the last year, because I think this is very significant, and it's kind of interesting. Now, I don't know if Erdogan is the guy that's going to bring this about, by the way, because that's sort of, you've got the threshold issue, but you also have an age issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so if you look at Antichrist, is he going to be around that much longer? I mean, it's interesting. His Erdogan's birthday is 2 days after mine and 26 days before Bill Koenig in the same year.
Okay.
So I could say that Erdogan is a contemporary, and I think I'm holding up better than he is right now. That's he's looking a little frail around the edges. I don't know if he's just frail or he's bored from having to sit in these meetings with all these lunatics that are like him, that think they can run everything. But I think what's going on with Turkey is incredibly significant.
Mm-hmm.
The intervention in Syria, I think this whole thing with Syria is very important. And then when you unpack all of that, you have this giant technocratic trade route everything that wants to be done. And everybody here a trade route, there a trade route. Everybody's got a trade route. You know, you got Israel, Saudi Arabia, the what is it? The India, Middle East, Europe corridor, IMEC it's
IMAC,
called. And that was what they were talking about just a few days before, a week before October 7, how great this was going to be. That kind of got put on hold. You got the Gaza plan, and Jared Kushner. Watch this guy. I'm telling you, he and Mohammed bin Salman are very important players in this. They're rising to prominence. I mean, there was a big article in The Spectator recently that said Jared Kushner could Bigfoot anybody in the Trump administration. In other words, get rid of him.
Really?
And he's kind of behind the scenes. And then all of a sudden, here comes Tony Blair back on the scene with this Gaza plan at the White House last week. And it's like, I thought he went away. All of a sudden, now he's back on this very important key thing that's prophetically related. And I think I mentioned Sunday, when Tony Blair was on the scene, I had more hair. You know, I had to use a blow dryer when Tony Blair first came on the scene. Now I don't even need to pretend that anymore. So this is all it's very strange. I mean, I've watched this all my life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the 6-Day War. My dad was so excited. I was 13 years old in 1967. And I've only seen this become more as a very important pivot point. There was a guy who wrote a series of articles that his name was Halford Mackinder, and he called the European plain, like Poland, Russia area, as the geographic pivot point of history, and then others came and expanded that to include the periphery, which included like Turkey and the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but we see this as like central and core to everything. Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote a book called I think it was called The Grand Chessboard. That's why I use chess pieces in my thing, because I think it's a good analogy that all these things are being moved around, and I just think we're at a very significant time of geopolitical earth and prophetic history.
Yep, 100%. The coalition of the willing getting involved in Ukraine today. The UK announced that they're putting planes in to monitor the border of Poland. It's interesting times, to say the least. Listen, John.
By the way, our president comes there and the prime minister doesn't even meet him.
Yeah.
What's up? That's a snub.
Yeah. Well, listen, can I just say, for everybody in the UK, I think we can all unanimously agree that we do not stand by Keir Starmer in the slightest. You saw I don't know if you saw the march in London.
Yeah, it was like, what, 50 people? I think the media said, the BBC. I mean, 150 people.
Yeah.
I saw the pictures. They were shocking.
Uh-huh. It was
easily over 1 million.
Well, I heard Tommy Robinson say that it was definitely the biggest march that London has ever seen. And I wouldn't doubt that from the aerial shots. The aerial shots were massive. It just showed, the estimates are from 1 to 3 million.
Right.
But
all the media said 100,000. Oh, wait, 110,000. And I'm like, how stupid do they think we are? Well,
even there was the petition going around calling for a general election or the removal of Keir Starmer, and I think that hit over 1 million signatures really, really quickly. And there's a standard that if it reaches 100,000, it has to be heard in Parliament. But the Labour government just went, nope, we're not listening, and pushed it away. We're not. What I'm saying is we're so detached from our rulers, the elite, that it's not even funny anymore. Listen, John,
I've seen this petition that a friend in the UK, the UK government should not unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. Now, it's at 34,000 signatures, I see.
Yeah.
Right now.
I got sent that by a member of the Jewish community in Belfast, signed that. But it's one of those things is if you were to go onto the streets of Belfast right now, and we do, and when you're talking about if Israel is brought up and you're talking about Israel, you're kind of taking your life into your own hands right now. And in fact, what was really horrific, it was the anniversary of October 7th, and I got contacted by a few people in the, because it's not a massive community, but they're the Jewish community. A few of them reached out to me and said, do you want to come along to our meeting, our vigil? I said, when is it? And I think they were meeting at 4:15 in the morning in the centre of Belfast because they were afraid to meet when other people were around. And that's how horrific the times are. That just reminds me of 1930s Berlin. It's just that sort of mentality right now. It's
Somebody just sent me a meme from the UK. It said that the BBC is going back and revising its coverage of D-Day, and they're now saying that 400 American and British right-wing extremists attacked German tourist holiday in France. That's actually pretty good.
yeah. It's on point. It's the thing is, like, I could go down these rabbit holes because I could start talking about the use of when they called Charlie Kirk far right and all of that stuff, and anyway.
Well, who would have thought that? uh, you can argue about whether they were the right kind of humor, but when you think about it, like Monty Python was kind of prophetic in the way
Yeah,
they did things.
yeah,
So I went to an exhibit at the British Library when I was there, and I go over there and there's this like the Magna Carta, the original King James, and then they had two special exhibits: the papers of the Beatles and the papers of Michael Palin from Monty Python. And I'm thinking, like, that was so quintessentially British.
yeah,
The way
yeah,
all of that was in this great room of history of English thought.
yeah.
I chuckled at just like, yeah, there's the Magna Carta and there's Michael Palin. It makes perfect sense to the
all,
Brits.
all in one room, just the Britishness summed up.
Anyway,
Listen, this has been great. I really enjoyed this
I
tonight.
appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
And I'm going to say to anybody who's watching here, if you're not getting to Texas for this prophecy conference, uh, do live stream it. Do go on and purchase a ticket to live stream. I had the privilege. Pete Garcia sent me his slides to go through his slides and check them and stuff. And his talk looks great. And I'm gonna
I'll
try
be
not to
live
be there
checking
in
I'll
person.
be live checking those slides of
Yeah,
Pete. He's speaking, I think, just before me. By the way,
yeah.
I believe that the live attendance thing is full.
Oh, okay.
I believe, if I'm correct.
Well,
Somebody
then,
told me.
then, then get your online ticket, and stream it, and support the actual. It's getting gleaning loads of information and loads of good teaching, but at the same time support the ministry, support Hope for Our Times and that. And John, where can they follow you? I know the Caterlands put it up, but just in case anybody has missed it.
Fellowship Bible Chapel on YouTube, at Fellowship Bible Chapel, fbchapel.com, Real FBC on Rumble, and then I post a little bit on X under John Haller 54. I don't post a lot,
Mhm.
just because I really try to research things before I talk about, try to double, triple source. So I'm like, I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
Maybe I need an AI assistant to post for me
Oh.
more. Now everybody's going to say, well, is this real or is this
Yeah.
AI? And in some respects, the research capabilities of it are okay. I mean, this stuff's been around for a long time in the legal framework to kind of make connections between databases and of evidence. Like this is connected to this, and we've been doing this for a long, long time. So this is not entirely new. But I do think that the thing I'm more concerned about is tech intrusion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say that as well. October 1st is your next roundtable.
October 1st, I either 7 or 7:30 p.m. Eastern U.S. time.
Okay, guys, make sure you check that out. Guys, we're just going to close in prayer very quickly. Father God, I just thank you for this time. Lord, I thank you that iron sharpens iron. And Lord, I thank you for the instruction, the information, Lord. But I thank you for the wisdom and the knowledge, Lord. Father, I just say at this time in this season that we're living in, Lord, we need to make sure that your word is a lamp to our feet and a light to our path. Let us not be taken down the rabbit hole of conspiracy, but let us keep our heart and our mind and our soul focused purely on you. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen. So, guys, I call you the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, kings, queens, and priests in Jesus' mighty name. And remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Join us tomorrow. There will be a broadcast of my interview on with JB Hickson on Not by Works Ministries. And then on Friday, I will be on Certainty in Uncertain Times. And then on Sunday, we start our new series. It's not to be missed. So, guys, God bless.